It's a big day. Garlic planting, the next stage of the game, right?
Yep.
So, what are we up to?
Losing my garlic.
Distracting you?
Yep. Breaking apart garlic.
So garlic comes in bulbs, and obviously in order to plant the garlic, you need to separate it into its cloves, and that's what we're doing right now. We're working on German white, which is a lot easier than some other varieties.
Nice big cloves.
Big cloves, very easy to work with. You may notice that we're putting some cloves in some containers and other cloves in other containers. Well, basically, when I'm looking at one of these bulbs, I'm making a judgment call. I'm looking at the cloves, and I'm putting bigger, fatter cloves in the garlic that we're more likely to plant right away, and smaller, thinner cloves in another basket where we'll sort through if we have extra space and look for the biggest of the small, I guess you could say. But ultimately, once our space that we have worked up is full, and if we have garlic left, which we certainly will, those are the ones that we use to make powder or other garlic products.
You're also removing any damaged cloves too.
That's the other thing. Obviously,
They get stabbed or...
garlic attracts mites, and if you plant infected cloves, you're going to end up with a concentration of mites in the soil. So anything which has a lot of mite damage ends up going in the processing garlic as well.
Also stabbed.
And stabbed garlic, yes. So this takes a while. There's a reason that garlic costs what it does. There are a lot of steps in the process. I wanted to show you Cyprian's working as well. Cyprian, what's your business venture this year?
Making $4,000.
Making $4,000. Do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Clean garlic, plant it.
What kind are you growing?
Chestnut red.
So, Cyprian last year, this past growing season, grew summer squash and made a little money. This year, I wanted to give him a different business venture to work on, and I gave him one of our minor varieties of garlic, Chestnut red, and he's going to grow that one out, and we'll see how well his do. Chestnut red is a little different from German white. It's a little more work to work with. You can see Cyprian's breaking it apart, and there are some larger cloves and some smaller cloves, and whole layers, really. The smaller ones go there. That'll be a contribution to our garlic powder. And the bigger ones go in there for his planting. Well, I'm probably on my own until after lunch, but I wanted to show you, this is the garlic field. We have a ways to go, but we've been working at it over a week now. It's about 30 rows. The length varies a little bit because I'm following the contour of the hill, and as it wraps around it gets a little shorter, so the longest rows are first. We started with the Loras Italian, that garlic that Rosemary braids. It's a soft neck, so we got that in, and I believe I have it written down, but I believe that the German red is next, and then our music, which are varieties that we're growing out. And then we have something like 4 rows of Persian Star, and we ended up with a partial row that's not quite done. We may sort through the smaller seed in order to finish that row. And now we've gotten started with the German White, which is our main variety, and Cyprian's Chestnut Red is going to go on the far other end, so he can work on that until we catch up and use the rest of the space. This piece of the field rested this year. Prior to it, we had corn, and I know that draws heavily on the soil in terms of depleting its nitrogen. So what I did was I put the horses and steers on this last spring and let them trample it up, and I fed them bales of hay on here, so they manured it nicely. And then right before I moved them, I spread some rye and barley and oats and let them trample that seed in, and I put them on the pasture. So it sat in that. I ended up brush hogging it because a lot of ragweed and other weeds came up too, and I didn't want them going to seed too much. And then I let it grow again, and we fenced the goats on here for another round of manure. Then because the root structure was so intense and it was so dry, I did have to plow and disc before I tilled. I was hoping just to till a little less disturbance of the soil, but it didn't work out like that. Then I went through and I used the row maker on my little tractor, so you can see we have rows that are nicely marked. And now the next step is to make furrows with a hoe. We're still doing that by hand, and to plant each clove of garlic by hand. So it's a process, definitely a lot of work involved, a lot of steps. Are you guys turtles or snails?
Turtles.
I was gonna say, you're not moving very fast. All right, keep working, keep working. I think I'm gonna go check on someone who works more efficiently so you get a taste of what this involves. Progress?
Slowly but surely, yes.
Not as slowly as that other row of yours is being filled.
No. When you've done this a while, it becomes second nature.
Describe what you're doing here.
I am trying to space them about 6 inches apart, probably. I'm trying to stick them in the ground so that it's easy to cover them. We still have to put the Idafos rock on top. But otherwise, this is almost ready to be covered.
Basil root down.
Basil root down is better to do that.
I know I've had people tell me that it doesn't really matter, and that when you machine plant your garlic, it just gets put in, and there's really no telling which end of the garlic is going to be up and which is down. And I know that technically that's correct, but the fact is the roots do need to orient themselves downward, and you know, if you can stick it in with the basil root down so that the sprout comes out the top, you end up, well, doing something for the garlic so it can spend more of its energy growing. So one of these things you can do when you're hand planting, I suppose, even if it is a little tougher than it would be if we were using a machine. Captive audience, that's funny. Take a video of my audience. Who's watching us? Do you have anything to say? Goofy. Jump! Oh.
He barely. He stepped on something, but not the guy.
Garlic is a heavy consumer of macronutrients, and although we have the animals on the land and we have a lot of fertility, we've had a lot of success with adding some phosphorus to the mix. Just in terms of this, it's called Idaphos. It's a hard rock mined phosphorus, and the hard rock basically dissolves slowly over time, so it always as each rainfall happens, more of it filters in and is available to the roots of the garlic. And we've had great success with just adding this to our soil. Maybe we won't always. We'll do a soil test eventually and see once we've cycled through and we start having garlic where we've previously had garlic and where we've applied this Idaphos. But for now, we do add it, even though it's an additional expense. It just seems to help. So what's your favorite part of garlic planting? Being done. Seriously?
No.
That's it?
It's a beautiful day and getting outside,
Uh-huh.
being out in the nice weather, and I like to switch around doing the different jobs because it gets a little hard on your back if you're doing one thing only. But also too, you can think about things. When I was out here by myself, I sang the whole time. I won't sing right now because everybody's out here. But there's plenty of time to mull things over when you're planting garlic.
You accuse me of escaping to the fields.
Yep. Because you can
I
think.
come in and complain about how hard I'm working, and you say, well, you don't know what it's like here in the house.
That's right. Especially on a beautiful day. You wouldn't want to be out in the field.
Seriously.
I
Who wouldn't
mean,
want
this
to be
is
out in
like,
the field?
who pays too for a workout? You can just work in a farm.
Yeah. We could start a fitness club.
We could do all sorts of things. We got the animals. We got all the field work, cleaning barns. We could do goat yoga. Some people do that. All sorts of ventures. You can get a full body workout cutting wood. That's another.
For sure, that's coming up.
That's another
If anybody wants to pay to help cut me, if anybody wants to pay to help me cut wood, let me know. So what are you doing right now?
Right now I'm covering the garlic.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make sure you cover it well enough because when you get the frost, sometimes you can get a dry heave of the frost and it'll push them out if you don't have them covered well enough. So trying to make sure that I've got enough.
How deeply do you want to cover them?
An inch or two. About, I mean, like, I think people generally say 3 inches, but give or take, it depends.
Yeah, we mulch heavily too, so
Yep.
we probably don't cover them quite as much.
Try more like an inch, but then the heavy mulch on top.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting it at the worst spot.
Why is that?
Because of all the organic matter, it makes it hard to cover it. You see how it's like a almost have to rake it when you
But
get
it's
to the
really
nice
good for
finder.
the garlic because all of this is going to break down.
But when you get to the nice finder, it's a lot easier to cover.
Mm-hmm.
But this is obviously good too for garlic.
I should probably be working, but maybe a few questions and answers. First of all, how much garlic is this? Well, I think it's about an acre. I need to pace it off and try to figure that out actually. I think we're trying to grow just a little bit less than we did last year because it ended up being pretty stressful. Little too much for the hand labor that we've decided to do in our operation. So, about an acre. Another question, well, why are we planting now? Don't we usually plant things in the spring? Actually, garlic could be planted in the spring, but it wouldn't have as much time to grow, and generally spring planted garlic does not size up anywhere near as big as garlic planted in the fall. The idea is that it starts its growth very early on. We'll have garlic come up sometimes in March, and it's very slow growth, but the plant gets that start that you wouldn't be able to give it if you planted in the spring because, well, the soil's frozen and then it's wet and can't be worked up. So garlic definitely gets planted in the fall, not the spring, for optimal sizing. Third question, don't you worry about the garlic dying over winter? Well, actually that is a concern, and it has a lot to do with our choice of planting time. Here I am out in a t-shirt, but sometimes we're out here planting and it's sleeting and the soil is freezing and thawing. The idea is we plant it as late in the season because if we planted it earlier and we got a heat wave more significant than the nice 60s that we're experiencing right now, the garlic would come up, and then in the harshness of the winter it would die because it had used up all its energy in that early growth. So you want to plant your garlic late enough that it goes dormant, but early enough that you can get it in, that the soil isn't frozen. One thing we do to help our garlic survive the winter is mulch heavily with old hay, leftover hay from last year, some of our first cutting hay. Yes, I know straw would be optimal, but we don't combine anything. We don't do small grains, so we have hay. And I haven't found the seed heads from the hay really to be that much of a concern. In any case, the benefit of the mulch is that it keeps there from being so many freezes and thaws that the garlic experiences because the mulch controls the temperature. Our garlic gets a slightly later start than unmulched garlic because the soil stays frozen under it longer, but it doesn't experience freezes and thaws if you have, say, a warm spell in the winter, things that can actually cause damage or even kill the garlic. It's called winter kill. So the mulch is very helpful in that regard. And on top of that, the mulch suppresses the weeds early on. We do hardly any weeding. And finally, the mulch breaks down and adds organic matter in the soil. And since garlic draws so heavily on the soil, it's nice to complement its planting with this organic matter, kind of to replace some of what it draws from the soil. It keeps our soil from being depleted. Perhaps an obvious question is, why in the world are we planting by hand? Why are we not mechanized? Well, some of that has to do with the art of what we're doing here. We grow artisanal garlic, small varieties of highly desirable seed garlic, and therefore planting by hand, like I showed you, where we can put those basil roots down, is just a nice touch. We end up with, I'd say, 80% of our garlic being seed grade and commanding that very high price that you wouldn't get if you were growing lots of garlic that got a little damaged. You had to make garlic products out of it, garlic powder, minced garlic, and the like. So we command a very high pay price, but in return, we're planting very carefully by hand. Now, there are some things we could do to speed it up. I've thought about, for example, using our tobacco planter. And when we're harvesting, we could use an undercutter. So, there's some things we've thought about in the future, but for example, right now, if we were using the tobacco planter, we'd probably plant single rows, and we would be using a whole lot more space than we do. You can see we have very compressed garlic planting, triple rows with a walking space between. The tobacco planter, unless I were to build something on my own, you'd plant single rows, and it would be a lot more space between them. It'd just be a huge amount to mulch, and we'd have other problems. Regarding the undercutter, it is something we've thought about. I'm concerned there would be some damage, but it may be an investment. We just have to have it custom made. We'd have to think about it in terms of our spacing so we could use the tractor. We're not against mechanization, but we're also in... Oh, we are. Why are we against mechanization?
That's part of the problem in the world.
Part of the...
We've lost our personal touch with the land.
We've lost our personal
I think it's
touch with the
important
land.
Because you appreciate it more when you work hard.
That's true. That's true, but there are things...
There are instances, sure. but
I
I'm
haven't
saying-
seen you out here with the broad fork. You seem okay with me rototilling and hilling this.
Oh yeah.
So some mechanization,
Some
yes?
mechanization, sure.
Yeah, some mechanization, but Rose does have a point philosophically. We know a lot of farmers whose farms have grown massively, and we scratch our head because they have a farm over here, a farm over there. Do they really know the land they're farming? Are they close enough where they can sense where the land is lacking, where it's not? Do they understand their soil? Have they touched their soil? Have they worked their soil with their hands? There's something about this close handwork which gives you a relationship with the soil. Am I preaching now? Is this good?
Yeah, but also too, people just in general could be educated more on their food.
Yeah.
And knowing what goes into that food.
Seriously.
It's important.
Yep. I feel like we're educated. Well, we're being educated. Every day out here is an education.
Always. Continually.
Amen. End of sermon. I'd better get back to work,
Yes,
right?
you better.
Have to get that row covered.
Gotta get this one right here.
Waiting on Clement.
Yep, come on. Still
Not
coming.
exactly my fault. I'm doing 2 rows.
Grandma was slow, but she was old. What's your excuse?
I'm young.
Oh. Let me show you some of these Brussels. I'm really excited. We're going to start harvesting, I think, this coming week. Look at this. Pull back some leaves. Oh, I think we have some size there. Look at that. I've started to pull up these lacinato kale because they're pretty much done. I mean, man, if we're eating just for ourselves, this is absolutely beautiful, but the leaves that are big enough to sell are full of bug holes and they have sun scaled on them. So I think we're pretty much done selling those. I'm going to uproot the plants, at least some of them, and feed them to the pigs. Salad, everybody needs a salad. As far as the green kale is concerned, we turned in 35 cases on Friday, and it might be the last of it. We picked those plants pretty clean. Look at those palm trees. I think we did a pretty good job cleaning those off. Will they grow? I don't know. Maybe we'll have another harvest. We'll see. Got the little goats out there, still foraging. This is this year's crop of babies plus one wether that we're going to process for ourselves. All the big goats, all the big does are in with Archie. Called Archie because he came on the Feast of the Archangels. He's our new buck. He may not be big enough to do his job yet, but he certainly wants to, and they're in heat. The little ones can't be bred this year, so they're out here far away from that action, and this is where we'll keep them until that breeding season is over, or maybe we'll put them in another pen. We'll see how long it takes Archie to do his job. Hey, you guys. Hi. Oh. This is where we had all that zucchini and summer squash. You can still see some of the vines in there. We're moving these chickens and turkeys across this area a little bit at a time. Not only are these guys adding fertility to the soil as they go, but they are eating all the squash bugs. This was all the cucurbits that we grew this year. And, oh, hi. Hi, it's okay, yes. Yeah. So this is the extent of our squash bugs, and they're gobbling them up as they come into the sunlight. And next year when we grow a lot of winter squash, I'm hoping we don't have the problem with the cucumber beetles and the squash bugs that we have recently. All right, is fence off? Hold that dog.
I got her. She's annoyed. They're big. They've suddenly gotten big.
Hey, Clement or Cletus, feed them a little bit so they stay. These are going to be the biggest chickens we've raised. Next, we may want to process them a little sooner.
Get out! What? There's an extra turkey during the feed. There's an extra turkey putting up the fence.
Daddy's coming.
Whoa! No.
All right, don't give them heart attacks though. Work together, you guys. There's nothing for you over here. Go to your new home.
That one's a very fat one. Oh, here's another very fat one.
Bring more food in the morning. All right. Turn on the power and we should be good to go.
Now we need to
Wait,
plug in this.
let me get out first. Supper? Supper's good, I suppose. Somebody's got to finish the garlic though. You want to wave? Bye. All right, that means this is my garlic crew. Cletus, Clement, garlic. The garlic doesn't plant itself. Come on, let's go, let's go. Hold out your bucket. There. All right, so I have some boys doing a single row after I did 2 double rows. alongside it, and I'm gonna start covering, and we're almost done, which is good because the sun's starting to go down. Well, sun's going down, and that's a wrap. 4 more rows done. I haven't counted, maybe 10 more to go, 11 more to go. We'll be busy this next week. We're done for tonight, we're done for the weekend. We're gonna enjoy our Sunday, but we're not done with this project. Please say a prayer for us that the weather holds out and is nice, that we're able to get this done in the midst of all the other busyness. Say a prayer for all farmers too. This is the busy season. This is when everything that they've worked for all year comes to a head. You get the harvest in, you get things under shelter. A lot of work goes into this, and it all comes down to fall harvest, or in my case here, fall planting. That's it from Kleinshire. Enjoy your weekend. Subscribe, follow along. God bless.